You're saying it's okay for Donald Trump to cast aspersions on every American citizen who he doesn't like and suggest that they're illegal.
Mehdi Hasan grills Trump's former chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, pressing him on January 6th pardons, racism, and Trump's chaotic leadership. Mulvaney tries to defend the indefensible, but Mehdi isn't letting him off the hook. Let's get into it.
Let's start with your own journey on Donald Trump, who you know well. I think it's fair to say you've been on quite a flip-flopping journey when it comes to President Trump. You once called him a terrible human being. Then you became his White House chief of staff.
Yes.
Then after January 6th, you resigned from the government and you said you wouldn't vote for him again. Then you did vote for him again last year. A man you know incited an insurrection against the US government. Why?
Fair enough. By the way, I'm not the only person to have varying opinions on Donald Trump. In fact, I think his vice president currently has said some interesting things about him. The part about the horrible person, I remember very vividly because he would remind me of it on a regular basis. I was running for Congress at the time, and I had a debate that evening that the Access Hollywood tape came out.
Yes.
This is the one where he said you grab women by the privates and so forth. I gave a candid answer to it. And he never let me forget it. By the way, the man's capacity for forgiveness is infinite. His capacity for forgetfulness is absolutely non-existent. I can tell you this, is I worked with him for 3 years. I never saw any misogyny. I never saw any racial disparity, racism. I never saw the things that people accuse him of doing.
We'll come back to that.
Is he a perfect guy? No.
But you said you wouldn't vote for him again because of the insurrection.
Yeah, well, I didn't vote for him in the Republican primary. And a lot of folks did.
But you chose to put a man back in the Oval Office who you said, let me just quote you. You said that he lit the fuse for the insurrection and attempted coup in 2021. You said we needed a president that day. We didn't have one.
Yeah, and a lot, listen, I think Bill Barr said something very similar. Bill actually testified against him at the January 6th committee and said, look, general elections are binary choices in my country. They really are. We don't have a third party. It's this or that. And you have to say, okay, do I take this person with all of their warts and all their difficulties or this person?
I mean, an insurrection against the US government is not a wart. It should be disqualifying, should it not?
I quit over it. I quit over for a different reason. You
also said, I do not think you can be a reasonable person and say that Donald Trump should be president again.
Yeah, I think
so. You're not a reasonable person.
Look, American politics is a nasty business.
Are you saying basically you're happy to shift your views because that's how politics works? Or are you saying you get the man wrong? Because you also, I just got to remind people here before we move on, just before the 2020 election, you wrote in a Wall Street Journal op-ed that, quote, if he loses, Trump will concede gracefully. He'll fight hard to make sure the results are fair, and in the end, he'll accept the result, whatever it is. How did that work out?
That's the easiest question I'll get tonight, because people misunderstand this. That was not a prediction. That was advice.
It was a prediction.
It absolutely was not, and here's why. I know how Donald Trump works. By this time, after the election, I had been shut out and wasn't able to talk to the folks on the team. I believe that the RNC was lying to people like myself who were trying to encourage a discussion about the election and so forth. People stopped taking my phone calls, and I knew how Donald Trump takes information. And one of the things he reads religiously is the op-ed pages of the Wall Street Journal. I wrote that piece for an audience of one.
So you didn't believe he was going to hand over power? You said you didn't just write an op-ed. You went on CNBC and said, I recommend that he accept a peaceful transition of power, which I think he would do absolutely. That sounds like a prediction, which was wrong.
I was, again, advising the gentleman, and he did not take my advice.
He hasn't taken your advice on a lot of major issues. I think you were one of those people, including his vice president, his attorney general, who said, don't pardon the violent criminals from January the 6th.
I thought that was
He came in and pardoned nearly 1,600 people, many of whom attacked police officers, many of whom were prosecuted for having deadly weapons, many of whom had other convictions or pending charges for manslaughter, drug trafficking, rape, sexual assault of minors. Trump pardoned them all against the advice of his own people. What kind of person does that?
I thought it was a bad decision. I don't know why he did it. If you're not in the room with him when he's making the decisions, it's hard to understand exactly why he's doing it. By the way, his vice president said the same thing. A week beforehand.
So he threw them all under the bus and just did this thing.
And he should have pardoned
and then you all just fell in line. The party always falls in line, no matter what he does.
He is the leader of the party. There's no question about that.
So just blind support from the Republicans.
Blind support. No,
I mean, this is a pretty big issue.
You can criticize, you can disagree, and then still support.
Well, nobody resigned over this. I mean, you're not in the administration, but none of these people resigned. It's a pretty big deal, right? To pardon insurrectionists who assaulted police officers.
I don't think it's the worst decision he's made. I think the worst decision he made was to take security away from various members of his first administration, Mike Pompeo, John Bolton, and I don't like John Bolton very much, but I thought there have been some
It's a horrible
bad
thing to do.
decisions.
He's a vindictive man. You say he's forgiving. He forgives the insurrectionists, but goes after his critics.
I think he's done a fine job as president. There's a lot of decisions.
But hold on,
he's
how
made
can
that
he have done a
disagree
fine
with.
job as president?
Right now.
Well, he did. January 20th was his presidency. He began his presidency by pardoning insurrectionists. How do you just ignore that, is what I'm wondering.
You don't ignore it.
You literally are. You're saying he's done a fine job. By definition, you're ignoring.
You have to take all of the. I don't think anybody who's president does 100% of the stuff that anybody wants, other than the
But
president.
there have to be some red lines. There are no red lines
You
for you,
have to
Donald
take a look at the totality of the circumstances, don't you? I mean, aren't there politicians you like that you haven't agreed with 100% of the time?
Yes, I think for a lot of people, for example, voting for Joe Biden on the Democratic side, he supported what happened in Gaza. That was a red line. But for Republicans with Trump, there never seems to be a red line. Whatever he does, all is forgiven. You have called Trump's critics deranged for saying Trump would behave in an authoritarian, even fascistic way, that he would use the government in his second term to go after his critics. And yet, since he's taken office, Trump has cracked down on the press. He's ignored multiple court rulings. He's deported American citizens. He's threatened a Democratic New York Muslim mayoral candidate with deportation. He's arrested a Democratic mayor and a liberal judge. He's indicted a Democratic congresswoman. Unlike your predictions about Trump, the predictions of his critics have been vindicated.
Let's pick one.
They've been vindicated.
Let's just pick one.
Go.
Let's pick the indicting the Democrat congresswoman. Just because you're in Congress doesn't mean you get a get-out-of-jail-free card for whatever you do. They indicted her for attacking or assaulting a federal officer. Just because you're in Congress doesn't mean you can get away with that kind of stuff.
He didn't just indict her. Alina Habba, his ridiculous U.S. attorney in New Jersey, also arrested Ras Baraka, the mayor of Newark. Yeah. He then had to be released, and a judge said that was a ridiculously hasty arrest. You are targeting political opponents.
Adam Schiff is a Democrat senator, used to be in the House, was a leading critic of Trump. Trump tweeted something today about, oh my goodness, it looks like Adam Schiff may have committed mortgage fraud over the course of the last couple of years. The point is, it's mortgage fraud, or at least it's an allegation of mortgage fraud. And my point is this, is it? It's just because you're a senator and a Democrat senator and an opponent of Donald Trump, does that mean that you're sort of protected against any sort of...
No, of course not.
Okay.
The totality.
The totality.
So for example,
we can do that with everything on the list.
Okay, the New York mayoral candidate, Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah.
He says he may be here illegally. We may have to look at deporting him. That's insane.
Is he?
No, he's an American citizen.
How did he get here?
So are we going to question every American citizen now? You think that's normal? I'm an American citizen. You're going to question my citizenship as well. If I say
Are you above the law? I don't understand. What's the equal application?
Hold on. I just want to clarify where we stand here. You're saying it's okay for Donald Trump to cast aspersions on every American citizen who he doesn't like and suggest that they're illegally here.
Is casting aspersions fascism?
You don't think threatening a mayoral candidate...
How did he threaten him?
He said, we're going to have to look at that, whether he's here illegally.
Is that a threat, or is that just...
Hold on.
But look,
you think that's normal?
Where was this defense, Mehdi? Where was this defense when Donald Trump was charged criminally for paying back a loan early at his business?
That's your description. That's your description.
My description is
of what multiple grand juries and prosecutors disagree with you on.
Is no more one-sided than your list.
But what's interesting is during that period, we were told that the Democrats were weaponizing government against Trump. And I'm saying to you, that was projection. That is exactly what Trump is doing now. He's tasking the government to go after his opponents. That is what I'm saying.
I had Democrat friends of mine reach out to me and say, the thing about charging Trump criminally for financial stuff in his business, that stuff worried them the most, because it was setting a precedent that they were worried would come back and be used against them, which is exactly what it appears to be happening with Mr. Schiff.
So you're admitting it's revenge?
What is the difference between revenge and applying the same standard to others that have been applied to you?
It's not the same standard, because Donald Trump wrapped up all the other trials against him. We'll never see the trial for January 6th, which even you objected to.
You charge a man...
Multiple trials were shut down.
Put somebody in jail for saying something wrong on a loan application. In jail. By the way, no one's ever gone to jail in my country.
Hold on.
Mick,
you know very well the other charges, which he'll never see a courtroom for, were much more serious. You know this. Even Bill Barr said he could be prosecuted for what he did with national security documents in Florida. But let me ask you a broader question, since we're not going to agree on this.
Right.
We are living in a country, you and I wonder whether we'll agree here, in which masked ICE agents with no badges, no ID numbers, no uniforms, can just grab people off the street, including American citizens, and just disappear them. If we saw this in a foreign country, wouldn't we call it authoritarianism?
Yeah, I don't like this one. There's a bunch of Republicans who have talked about this, that generally speaking, we like to perceive law enforcement as a force for good in the country. And I don't like this idea of having law enforcement cover their faces. If you knocked on my door in the middle of the night with a mask on, I'm probably going to shoot you. And we don't want to be that place.
But we are that place now. It's expanding. Multiple police forces are borrowing. If you live in a country where masked goons, armed goons from the federal government can grab people off the street. I'll take back the goon.
There you go.
Masked agents from ICE.
Yeah.
Violently, we've all seen the videos, it's all on tape, violently grabbing people off the street, gardeners, dishwashers, hairdressers, American citizens, kids, elementary school children. That is not fascistic authoritarianism. That doesn't concern you.
The part that I don't like is the mask part. The rest of the stuff I'm okay with.
You're okay with disappearing American citizens?
No, they did. They have. I have no difficulty with enforcing the law.
George Retters is a 25-year-old security guard in California, a disabled Army veteran.
Yeah. He
was taken by ICE last week. He's a U.S. citizen.
That would be wrong. Okay. I happen to think that they also deported, or at least they detained the father of 3 U.S. Marines.
They violently assaulted him on camera.
I thought that was wrong as well. Look, being a conservative with a small c, I want to believe in the institutions. I want to believe that things can move up through the courts. And I want to believe that the President of the United States, at the end of the day, will accept the court decisions.
You're telling me that you're okay right now with this alligator Alcatraz in Florida where there are 35 people to a cage, they're sleeping on the floors, there's maggots in their sandwiches, they're not getting showers or food. You're okay with that, torturing these people, many of whom have no criminal records, by the way, Mick, none whatsoever. They are law-abiding American residents.
I'm not okay with torture. If you let me answer this one, I'm not okay with torture. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not a reliable source for me.
That's not my reliable source.
That's what I've seen.
That's not my reliable source. My reliable source is the Associated Press, who interviewed detainees, families of detainees, and lawyers.
By the way, at times, I don't trust the Associated Press. You asked me about folks who I thought were deranged when it comes to Trump. Listen, there's a lot of folks in my country who believe that when it comes to Donald Trump, the ends justify the means. Anything against him is okay.
The Associated Press is not against Donald Trump. They're reporting on what detainees have told them about the conditions. El Salvador, the CICOT, don't even get me started on the conditions there, where Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man who was brought back, he says he was kept on his knees all night long, couldn't sit down. That's torture.
I have seen the press lie about Donald Trump firsthand.
He was tortured, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, thanks to Donald Trump and Kristi Noem and this administration. Do you support that?
I do not support torture. I do not know that happened.
But that's the allegation.
It was reported by, it was reported by folks.
No, the detainee said it in court documents. And this is a guy who says this is what happened to me. Multiple detainees, they're not all lying about the conditions in these places. Collective conspiracy from everyone in detention. Okay, that's a convenient get out. We mentioned Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Yeah.
He was the man sent illegally to El Salvador by the Trump administration. They tried to justify his deportation by saying he was an MS-13 gang leader. Trump put out a picture, he held up a picture of his knuckles showing MS-13 were photoshopped onto his hand.
Yeah.
Terry Moran of ABC News then did an interview with Donald Trump. Remarkable moment, one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen in my life as a TV journalist. Trump held up this picture.
And the picture was doctored.
The picture's doctored, right?
Yeah.
Trump insisted this was real. He insisted 7 times it was real. You were his chief of staff. How do you deal with that insanity?
It's not. I don't consider it to be insanity.
What do you consider it to be?
Here's what I consider to be bad staff work. Absolutely. Someone brought that picture into the President of the United States and said, Mr. President, here's the information. Part of my job, by the way.
Joking?
No, absolutely. Let's talk seriously about what the role of chief of staff is. Is to make sure that the information that gets to the President of the United States is good information. Because there's a lot of crap information out there. And you cannot let that stuff get into the President of the United States. Someone gave him this and said, Mr. President, look at this guy's knuckles. But a good staff work would prevent that type of information from getting in front of the President of the United States.
So I agree with you. A good staffer would prevent this from getting to him. They wouldn't have doctored the photo to begin with. Let's not even get into the dishonesty of this administration. But a sane human being would look at that and say, don't be silly, that's not a real picture. A 4-year-old child could tell you that that is a photoshopped image. The reporter tried to tell him it was a photoshopped image. He shouted at the reporter. He insisted 7 times that this was not photoshopped.
If the head of the Department of National Intelligence brought me that photograph and said, this is a picture of the guy, who am I I would probably believe that.
And after humiliating himself on national TV, would you not fire that person for giving you fake information? The White House just doubled down on the lie, which is what the White House does.
If I found out the information was false, there would be repercussions, yes.
If you were chief of staff at that moment?
I don't like bad information getting in front of the President.
The current chief of staff doubled down on this. They've never apologized for this lie he told on national television 7 times.
A difference of opinion in how to handle the White House.
But it was a lie he told 7 times.
Based upon what you're showing me, I believe that to be the case. I've never seen the man's knuckles, but yeah.
Hold on. Everyone here heard you say about 90 seconds ago, it's a doctored image. You and I agreed it was a doctored image.
It does look to me like it's doctored.
It is a doctored image. Everyone knows it's a doctored image, except Donald Trump. See, I'm the guy who normally calls Trump a liar, so he lies a lot. It's worse than lying. I think he actually believed this, which makes me worry about his mental health.
We can talk about his mental health if you want
We
to.
will shortly, but I just want to deal with should heads roll for this?
I can't defend that, and there would certainly be conversations in my White House over how to handle that.
I'm glad you're not defending it, but you've defended a lot of other stuff. So let's bring in our patient panel of experts. Let me begin with George Conway, lawyer, co-founder of the anti-Trump Lincoln Project. George, you were a lifelong Republican. You're now a very well-known, outspoken critic, I think it's fair to say, of the president. Mick thinks it's unfair to talk about fascism, authoritarianism. He didn't accept any of the examples I gave. Why do you think Trump is an authoritarian?
Because of the very things that Mick wrote about in 2020. He thought it was possible that Donald Trump would ignore the results of the 2020 election. That's a fascist. That's authoritarian. He's also a pathological liar because he continued after people who came into the White House and told him, you lost. And he didn't want to believe them. He brought in other people. No staff person could prevent him from doing that. He wanted somebody to justify his lies. He is a pathological liar with no moral conscience, no decency, no honor. And that is the problem. And all of those people end up being fascists. You were right after January 6th, and I think it's a disgrace that you now sit here and try to defend him when basically he's done nothing but get worse.
I know the information he was getting at the time. And if you were in the White House and every single person who walked in and said, you won, you won, you won, you won, what would you believe?
The evidence was to the contrary. They didn't say he won. His own lawyers told him he won. The Justice Department people told him they would resign if they tried to make him.
As George points out, the DOJ were telling him he lost. Bill Barr was telling him he lost. The guy's telling me he won was the My Pillow guy. Maybe he shouldn't have been inviting the My Pillow guy into the White House.
And
maybe that's disqualifying.
I don't like the fact that My Pillow guy was a senior advisor to the president.
Whose fault was that? Whose fault was that?
Donald Trump is ultimately responsible for his advisors. There's no question.
So why give him a pass then?
Because I understand how the presidency works. It's one of the most isolated.
There's never been a president like this. You know this.
That's fine, but that doesn't mean it's fascist. All presidents are different. Yes, he is his own thing, and I get that.
Isn't the problem, though, Mick, twice now tonight you've said he got bad information on the photo, he got bad information on the election. Maybe the president of the United States should be someone who's smart enough to reject bad information.
Again, it's fair. It's an easy rhetorical point. It doesn't make you.
Leaders should be smart.
It doesn't make you a fascist authoritarian if you don't do what you've just said.
Put that to one side.
Face it.
You accept that leaders should be smart and not dumb. That's a basic criteria.
I would prefer people to be smart and not dumb.
And yet tonight you've told the audience that Donald Trump was dumb on 2 occasions. He listened to a My Pillow guy and he listened to an unnamed aide who gave him a clearly doctored image.
My difficulty.
And that was Mick Mulvaney on the hot seat, dodging, deflecting, and struggling to defend Trump while Mehdi kept the pressure on. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Until next time.